See Batmidler.
Welcome back to Sportsworld. We're talking racing. It's a big time in racing, the autumn, and tomorrow it's the Australian Cup, Group 1, a race worth over $650,000. And we see the superstar of Australian racing called Better Loosen Up. And it's interesting, in the promotion for the event, it said that if Better Loosen Up can't get your heart racing, then nothing will. And I agree, Keith. He's the most exciting horse because he has this invincibility about him, not because he's pretty and he looks good and because he wins by big margins, but there's something special about this horse, isn't there?
Oh, totally, Bruce. He's won 4.2 million, which is 10 times the stake of tomorrow's race. He's fabulous. His margins are never big. He's the Cox Plate of 1990, a clash between, or a finish between Better Loosen Up and Citizen, his main rival tomorrow, and it was a beauty.
Yes, he's come right over the top. And David, in the last 50 metres here, Michael was actually fairly soft on him, wasn't he?
Yes, it was one of his easiest wins, Bruce. He was under a lot of pressure at the 1,000, but going across the line, he was this win was a bit harder here in Japan.
And probably even more exciting. I mean, if you can say something's more exciting than winning a Cox Plate, to win the Japan Cup. Keith, I don't think a horse's determination has ever been better illustrated than in this race.
Well, this win, watched by some 167,000 people, really put Australian racing on the international map, and there's the horse that did it, Better Loosen Up.
OK, then, David, you produced him first up in the Blamey Stakes. We'll see him chasing Vo Rogan in a minute. There must have been a fair bit of pressure on you this day, personally, because you didn't have a lot of time between Japan and Flemington to get this horse right.
No, having a horse like Better Loosen Up makes it a lot easier to do it with a horse like this. You know that once you get him to a certain level, he'll always finish his race off, and that's what he did.
I can remember, Keith, sitting in the grandstand, McKinnon Stakes Day, and seeing Stylish Century bolting on the home turn and thinking, gee, Better Loosen Up won't get him today. But he went from not getting him to getting him in no time. And this is the thing about this horse, he accelerates so quickly. Exactly.
The same feeling went through my mind when he was chasing Vo Rogue in the Blamey. I thought, gee, I think he's going to hang on today, Vo Rogue, but that was erased in a flash, as you mentioned.
David, everyone wants to know how the horse has done since the Blamey Stakes. It'll be 21 days between his races. He's worked at Lindsay Park, obviously. Have you been happy with his progress? Yes,
Bruce. He's a very lazy horse in his track work. He does a lot of track work, and he's got great recovery and a great set of lungs, so he doesn't need a lot of racing, and he thrived, we might say.
How do you measure his performance in training? I mean, do you have times that you go by? Do you have other horses that he works with? Do you have a measurement, say, in the spring of 1990 that you compare with in the autumn of 91?
Yeah, well, what we generally do is pick out a couple of maidens that are racing over 2,000 metres at Lindsay Park to work him with.
Really?
And he works with those horses, and if you're working with say, an Adelaide Saturday horse or a midweek Melbourne horse, they generally are a little bit better than him, and I try and set up his gallop so he wins every gallop that he works in. But I have to drop him back a class or two to get him, and he can. The best he'll run at Lindsay Park is not in the best five gallops of the morning ever. But what I take a lot of notice of is his recovery, and when he has a little bit of a blow after his work, we just step it up a little bit more the next day or the routine for the following week, and at the moment his recovery is very good.
What's the quick definition, David, of interval training that you use for Better Loosen Up?
Well, at Lindsay Park, it's a setup that Dad did, has studied and trial and error for a lot of years, and basically it's like athletics, Bruce. He does his striding work and then has a jog and walk recovery, and he'll do that up to 3 or 4 times a morning over a time of about 45-50 minutes. So it's not like human interval training, but it's similar to human interval.
Well, it's been very, very successful. The thing is that do you ever feel almost vulnerable not having that race form behind him each week? I mean, Vo Rogue and Citizen have had a much more legitimate preparation, I guess, than Better Loosen Up. Do you ever worry that you might, the form may go off and you won't be able to, in fact, look at it and say, OK, he's not quite spot on?
I think, Bruce, the more we race Better Loosen Up, if we gave him more races, I'd be less confident that he could put that sensational run up every time.
I think you're a bit out of order there. 7 wins in a row, and you're asking whether he's doing the wrong thing.
No, I'm not really. No, he hasn't done the wrong thing. He's obviously done the right thing. He's a super horse and a super trainer, and not a bad bloke. But I just, I mean, Vo Rogue, we know what his form's like. Citizen, we know what his form's like. this is, you know, this is quite unorthodox. I'm very interested in it. It's the English way, isn't it? I mean,
Sure.
it's the way they do in England. They don't run them between the 2,000 guineas and the Derby.
No.
And this is what you're doing with Better Loosen Up.
Yes, he can take close racing, because he's such a tough horse with great constitution. But I think the key to him racing so brilliantly is to space him, because he just thrives on it.
OK, let's look at his opposition. Vo Rogue and Citizen. Firstly, last year's Australian Cup, Keith, this was one of the great races as it turned out. Vo Rogue holding Better Loosen Up. One day he didn't run past the leader and superimposed third.
Yes, a great performance by Vo Rogue, and that was his second year in a row, so he's shooting for the hat-trick tomorrow. Big performance, wasn't he? He does improve at Flemington.
The problem is he hasn't won a race since, and we know what Better Loosen Up's done. He's gone on and on and on. Here's Citizen. Now, if it rained today in Melbourne and a little bit tomorrow and the sting was out of the ground, Citizen would, I think, shorten up in the betting. He certainly wouldn't take favouritism of Better Loosen Up, but he'd come closer.
Well, this is his second up run in the St George at Caulfield. I think that it is one of his most authoritative wins, certainly his best since the Caulfield Cup. He's drawing right away.
Well, I guess of the big three in Australian racing, at weight for age, it's Better Loosen Up, Superimpose, and Citizen is the third one, isn't he? I mean,
yes.
You know, he won a Caulfield Stakes at weight for age, he's won a Caulfield Cup. He's a genuine class thoroughbred, and he could test Better Loosen Up tomorrow.
Well, that clash between Vo Rogue and Better Loosen Up at Flemington, Bob Hoysted, who was a lover of great races, was so impressed with that, he said to Brian Martin, look, you should replay that on 3UZ, and you guys play it again tomorrow on television. And then he said, I went home that night and I had a look at my horse, and he said, I think I've got one just as good. And he's got a message for you this morning, David, that his horse is eating well, looking well, training well, and he's going to run well against Better Loosen Up.
Do you respect the horse?
Oh, yes, he's a very good horse, and he, especially if there's any cut in the ground, he'll be very hard to beat. But you can say snap back to Bob.
Let's look at the betting. Better Loosen Up's a long odds-on favourite. Keith asked me to take the evens 3 weeks ago, and I didn't. 4 to 9, 4 Citizen, Vo Rogue 8. Prince Saleri, who's improved, he's going well, but you wouldn't quite think at this class, and then Just a Dancer and Barlandy. If the track did cut up, Better Loosen Up might get to 4 to 6, and Citizen might be 5 to 2 by tomorrow, but if it doesn't, then they might be the best odds you get. Would you be keen to take the 9 to 4 on, Keith?
No, I wouldn't. When we spoke about grabbing the even money, that was before the St George Stakes. I was very impressed with the win of Citizen. We have had little rain at Flemington. The track was good rated yesterday, but the top was taken off it. The conditions will be perfect for Citizen, and I think he'll beat Better Loosen Up tomorrow.
You're fair dinkum. You've just fallen off my chair.
Yeah, I think this is the race that he can beat him. I've always said Better Loosen Up is a better horse, but I think this is Citizen's race, Bruce.
Well, David, I won't ask you who you're going to tip, but you must be confident. I think Better Loosen Up will win. He's the best horse I've seen, I think, since Kingston Town. Now, this is the Australian Cup trophy. The VRC's been very kind to bring in. It's a replica of the statue that stands outside the gates at Flemington, the mighty Far Lap trophy worth $5,000. And the first prize tomorrow is $422,000. It's a wonderful trophy, and David, there's a chance you might have your hands on it tomorrow, despite what Keith says.
Yeah, I hope Keith's wrong. He rarely is, but...
Oh, you're very kind, David. I thought you'd be more truthful. Your degree of confidence has soared.
No.
David, thanks for coming in. Good luck tomorrow. We'll see you at Flemington.
Thank you.